Hello, my name is Jackson Moneki. I'm a former banker. I've worked in one of the leading banks in Kenya for over 11 years. I'm also a CPK and an entrepreneur. Today we'll be discussing about project financing. The question is, how do you acquire funds from Kenyan banks to fund your project? The projects I'll be discussing today are three. One is what we call plot purchase. Two is what we call development loans, or what we call construction loans as well. And thirdly, we'll be discussing about mortgages. And each of these projects are financed in most of the Kenyan banks, and their requirements depends on which project you want to pursue. So starting off, let me clarify that banks in Kenya don't do construction. Banks in Kenya fund construction or fund projects or fund plot purchase, but they don't do construction. Whereby many of the people may think that banks can do a construction where they will collect a percentage of the rent until they repay the loan, then they hand over the property to the owner. Banks don't do that, or circles don't do that in Kenya. To start off, plot purchase basically is where one wants to acquire a piece of land, a bare piece of land. And it can be either in a town, that is within a municipality, the outskirts of a town, or in an agricultural area. So when one wants to acquire a plot, maybe in town, number one, it's good to prepare yourself with what you call a contribution. A contribution is an amount of money whereby the bank will require you to contribute towards the plot purchase. Mostly, for plots in town, the banks will require you to contribute at least 20% of the purchase price. The bank will only fund up to 80% of the purchase price. For plots outside the town, that is the outskirts of a town, the banks will fund up to 60% to 70%. So it's good to prepare yourself with 40% of what is required to purchase that kind of plot. For agricultural land, you'll be required to contribute up to 50%. So the bank will only contribute in terms of a loan towards the purchase of an agricultural land up to 50%. So the requirements, most banks, one is the land or the plot here must have a title deed. Two, the plot is being sold by the owner. So the person who is selling should be the owner of the land. Number three, it's good to have done a due diligence by yourself to ensure that the piece of land, that is by doing a search and also checking on the maps in the lands office, ensure that the land is as it is on the ground in the offices of Minister of Lands. So to go ahead, is the second topic here. We are talking about development loans or construction loans. These are loans funded to do a commercial or a residential construction, whereby you have a piece of land and you are interested in putting up a building. So mostly the banks will consider properties that are that can bring in income. Two, properties within a town, the outskirts of a town, not necessarily agricultural land. And in this way, the banks will require you to contribute towards that construction up to 40% if the piece of land you want to construct is outside or outskirts of a town, and at least you contribute 20% towards the construction if the plot you want to put up a building is in a town. The requirements to do the development of a plot: one, of course, it has to have a title deed. Two, you must seek approvals, plan and approvals from the municipal council or the county council. You got to have approvals from NEMA as well as the NCE. You also need to have paid the land rates as required. You also need to have filed your returns, so you have a certificate of clearance from KRA, as well as other personal documents. So that topic here we discuss is on mortgage. Mortgage is whereby you want to acquire an already put up building that is either for own residence or for commercial use. So for mortgages, one, you have to identify the property by yourself. The property might be in town or on the outskirts of a town, or also in areas of agricultural land. For properties in town, you got to contribute up to 20% of the purchase price. For employed people, when we talk about mortgages, we have an advantage whereby if the organization an employee is working for has an MOU with a bank, the bank can even lend up to 100% of the property the client wants to have a mortgage on. For business people, the contribution is between 10% to 20% of the property. Of course, the property must have a title. The land rates must be up to date. If it's a residential property, the rental income tax must be up to date. If the property is earning between 288,000 to 15 million, that's a requirement that's what we call rental income tax. And number 4, you got to have proper documents. That is, if you are a business person, you got to have business records. If you are an employee, you have to have employment records to support what your incomes. Just to move on, let me touch on what you call if you are a self-help group and you want to acquire either a plot, you want to do development, or you want to have a mortgage on an already constructed property. 1, you must have a registered group. 2, you must be having an account in that bank where you want to get funding. And 3, you've got to be saving either weekly or monthly basis. And for a group, a member individually can get such financing, or the group as a whole, as one, can also acquire a property. A group must go on and also acquire from an advocate what you call a trust deed. This is a document that is required by all banks where a self-help group wants to acquire property. Cost of credit is the money that a bank charges, either through interest or through processing fees, or what you call administration fees. And cost of credit is one is important to understand the cost of credit, because it will range from one bank to the other. Cost of credit basically is what you call processing fees of a loan, processing fee, or what you also call administrative fees. And also cost of credit also includes the loan interest, and the loan interest depends on the period you'll be required to pay the loan. It's good to inquire how long a loan is going to take to pay for you to be able to compute the interest. You also have what you call other costs. For example, loan credit life. This is an insurance policy where an individual is given a credit life policy, so that if he is disabled or incapacitated, or in case of death, such loan can be cleared by an insurance company. For project financing, there is also what you call valuation fees. That is valuation fees for the property. We also have trust deeds fees for charged by advocates. We also have what you call property insurance. That is an insurance policy where if you're going to do a construction or you want to get a mortgage, the property you want to do construction or the property you want to acquire through a mortgage, to be covered by an insurance company against mostly fire. So there's also other cost of credit which is important to get information from the lender, from the bank where you or the circle you want to acquire your credit. So let me touch on what we call general requirements to get a loan for project finance. General requirements. 1, we have said the title deed. 2, the search and a piece of land should be owned by the seller. We also have business records, that is for business people. That includes licenses, sales records, debtors, purchases records, among others. And also tax compliance documents. You also have to have employment records if one is employed. And to insist here is that even diaspora people can acquire property in Kenya through many of the banks. Many of the banks today in Kenya, they even go ahead and acquire property on behalf of their clients who are abroad. For more information on how to get the cost of credit calculations, you can visit www.costofcredit.co.ke. This is a site that is managed by Kenya Bankers Association. For information on how to acquire bills of quantities when you want to do construction, architectural designs, valuations, how to acquire property, and many more, visit gronaxltd.com, and also you can visit their offices, that is Gronax Commercial Agencies Limited, Gatehouse building in Nakuru town, 5th floor, suite 506. Gatehouse building, 5th floor, suite 506. Thank you, and looking forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you.